Everybody. It is now Tuesday, November the 3rd. We are here. It is Election Day. At long last, we have made it. It is time to finally begin counting the votes and to elect winners. All of the prognosticating, evaluating, predicting everything we have done over these 4 years and really since the midterms 2 years ago has come to this. This is a Senate description video for you here. You can already see that a number of states are filled in. I did that just as a joke for all you that give me a hard time about leaving Illinois in red. What we're going to do is basically break down just how good a position the Democratic Party appears to be in the U.S. Senate. They are in the driver's seat to take back the Senate tonight. I think it is more likely that we end up with a firm idea of whether or not the Senate is going to change hands as opposed to the presidency, because some of the states that require some extra time to begin counting their mail-in ballots are more present or do not have Senate elections going on, namely Pennsylvania, as well as Ohio, potentially Wisconsin. So all the safe states have been filled in for you: Oregon, Idaho, Wyoming, New Mexico, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Illinois, Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. And obviously we expect the vice presidency to be claimed by the Democrats and Kamala Harris. So here is how the Democratic Party is in position. Okay, in position does not mean that they are there yet, but this is why they have a 76% chance of claiming control of the U.S. Senate 24 hours, I should say, from now. Let's begin with some of the states that they have the best chances of flipping. That obviously begins in Colorado. The Republican Party is fully expecting to lose this race tonight. Okay, John Hickenlooper, the Democrat, is already basically has 1 foot on the United States Senate floor. Cory Gardner is, as we in the Jewish faith say, kaput. He has been outraised, outperformed, and is losing considerably and consistently in the polling. I would be absolutely shell-shocked if at this point Cory Gardner was somehow able to win re-election tonight. To me, this is basically equivalent to the North Dakota Senate race that we saw 2 years ago between Kevin Cramer and Heidi Heitkamp, where we pretty much went into the night fully expecting the Republicans to pick up that Senate seat, and they ended up doing that. Also think of it as what we're seeing in Alabama, where Doug Jones is probably on his way out tonight against Tommy Tuberville. Okay, to me, John Hickenlooper is firmly going to win this seat again because this is a flip. You cannot label it safe. That is just my inviolable rule, where if you are the incumbent, that gives you an advantage. Okay, it just does. If John Hickenlooper was the incumbent, this would be an easy call. It would be a safe retention for the Democrats, but we just can't do that. And of course, the polling has not made it as safe as a characterization either. So remember, the Democrats are technically right now at 47 seats, even though you can see this map being here at 45 to 41 with 14 unaccounted for. But we really also think of it as 46 seats. That's why I want to jump down here to Alabama, so that you can understand why they need 4 pickups on the evening. That's because Doug Jones, the incumbent Democrat, is firmly also expected to lose tonight to Tommy Tuberville, the Republican senatorial candidate. He is the former football coach at Auburn, the former football coach at Cincinnati, and in all likelihood, he is going to be able to upset Doug Jones and flip this seat for the Republican Party. It took some very special circumstances for the Republicans to win this Senate seat, or for the Democrats, rather, to win this Senate seat even one time. You'll forgive me, my voice is a little bit shot. I'm pretty under the weather. You may be able to guess why. The reality of the situation is, in Alabama, we have a scenario on our hands where Doug Jones, I think, should be beginning to look for new work. And until that happens, we can basically expect that Tommy Tuberville will take this seat, also likely. So that paints the picture for you. That's one flip for the GOP. making the Democrats need 4 Senate flips, but they get 1 here, basically offsetting that in Alabama. They are also they're very much in good shape here in Arizona. Now, they're not in quite as good a shape as they were 2 months ago. Okay, Mark Kelly, the astronaut, the husband of Gabrielle Giffords, who has tapped into voters' concerns in this state very effectively, is expected to win this seat tonight. Remember, the Democrats picked up this Senate seat 2 years ago with Martha McSally being defeated by Kyrsten Sinema, the Democrat. That was a big win for the Democrats because it gave them sort of a puncher's chance at actually grabbing the Senate this time around, because they lost a number of seats 2 years ago. They lost 4 of them. They lost in Indiana, North Dakota, Missouri, and in Florida, while getting 2 of them back in Nevada and Arizona. Now they have a chance to begin to close the gap a little bit further than they already have here with Colorado, and that is with Mark Kelly here in Arizona. Polling has shown him consistently in the driver's seat, although again, both this seat and the one in the presidential race have narrowed up and rather considerably. I would say that Mark Kelly's lead, it was definitely once around 15 to 17%. It is not anywhere close to that now. Okay, it is down to about 4 to 6%. But again, with 24 hours remaining, there's no time to campaign. There's no time for last minute buys. The race is what the race is at this point. Everything that could have been done to help shape this race has been done. And so that, like, the state of this race is the state of this race. That's the end of the story, and it will not change from there, which is why, to me, Mark Kelly is going to win this race as well. And so that, again, you already have 2 seats that I firmly expect to go the Democratic Party's way, Colorado and Arizona. This gives them the opportunity to get to that magic number, which is 50 or 51, depending on if they lose the presidency. So again, you have competitive races all across the board here, most of which are held by Republicans. And of these 12 seats, you have Michigan, you have Minnesota, where there are Democratic incumbents. Everywhere else, it's a Republican incumbent and an opportunity for the Democrats. And so only needing 2 seats to get to number 50 and only 3 for an outright majority puts them firmly in the driver's seat to get all the way to that firm majority. Okay, so these 2 are basically what puts them in position in summation to get all the way there, Colorado and Arizona. Now, here's where they can get the other 2 seats and potentially that 5th seat in total. Okay, those lie. I'm going to start with North Carolina. This is another seat I think the Republican Party has become a little bit resigned to potentially losing, because Cal Cunningham, despite some troubles with the sexting scandal, has been able to potentially overcome that and appears to be on track to win this Senate seat. He is leading in the last Marist poll that was released. A very reliable pollster for this state had Cunningham leading Thom Tillis by 10%. Okay, I think in recent days, Cal Cunningham has gotten back to where he was before this scandal, which was firmly in control of this Senate seat. So to me, here's what's going to happen on election night, which of course is tonight. Starting, obviously North Carolina is going to be one of the first states to begin reporting, okay, because it's on the East Coast. So what's going to happen here is, if the Democrats get this Senate seat, I am imploring all of you, pay attention to this race, because if the Democrats pick this seat up, that will get the ball rolling for them towards the majority. We know they have really strong chances here, okay, to get them within range, to get them close enough to 50 to where some of these swingier states, and again, these aren't done deals yet, but they're very close to that, especially Colorado. So if North Carolina goes that way, you're talking about the Democrats basically being 1 seat away from 50 with a ton of opportunities left. And Cal Cunningham right now is in position to do just that. And that is the biggest flip to me to this point for the Democrats, and one that tonight they need to see go their way. If they don't win this seat, their Senate hopes could definitely hinge on some very tough races that are extremely, extremely close. This to me is the tipping point for them. Now in Maine, Susan Collins is in basically is still a toss-up race here with Sarah Gideon. I think a lot of people have lost sight of the fact that Collins could end up winning this seat. I know I have said recently on this channel that I think her time has effectively run out a little bit, and that Sarah Gideon appears to have the edge. She still does, but by a very small amount. What I think is giving Sarah Gideon's campaign a lot of hope and a lot of optimism is that this northern portion of the state is where Susan Collins has to run up the score, and significantly. Okay, Jared Golden, who is a Democrat, who represents that district, like that is the northern portion of the state, is running away with his reelection. There are several potentially vulnerable Democrats, Max Rose in New York, among others, that could potentially lose. And Golden was one that I think the Republicans and the GOP House caucus had pointed to as a potential flip opportunity, that being Jared Golden. That has since dashed. That is so important for Susan Collins' re-election chances. So to me, this is one of those states that is going to be determinant as to whether or not the Democrats can get the outright majority, whereas to me, North Carolina is whether or not they can really reach 50 after all. Okay, so to me, Maine is still in the Democratic Party's column, but it's only a tilt. Okay, so you can see here, this is shaping up well for the Democrats. That's already 4 pickups. That gives them that puts them on track to reach number 50. Okay, now I want to touch on Michigan here. This was a state that the GOP thought they could potentially throw a wrench in the Democratic Party's plans a little bit here. Still a very competitive race, no doubt, but one that Gary Peters, the incumbent Democrat, is in control of. Gary Peters is a popular senator, not a very well-known senator, certainly not as well-known as the other Democratic senator from this state, that being Debbie Stabenow. But I think what we're having happen is you have a scenario where, again, in a Democratic wave year, also let's not forget that at the end of the day, John James, the Republican candidate here, ran 2 years ago and lost, okay, to John James. John James lost to Debbie Stabenow, okay? And so, at this point, what evidence do we really have, especially given that the polling has favored Peters throughout the election season, to suggest that John James is going to win this seat, especially because we expect Michigan to go to Joe Biden tonight? At what point do voters jump ship on that ticket or split their ticket and vote for John James? I can't see that happening. I think this is a likely Democrat, more as a likelihood characterization than a margin characterization. And here you are with Minnesota. Okay, Minnesota is a state that at this point, what evidence do we have to suggest that the Republicans can win this Senate seat? Jason Lewis, the Republican candidate, is not going to win this Senate seat. He is going to lose to Tina Smith, the Democrat. Tina Smith was far more vulnerable than she is now 2 years ago when she was replacing the resigning Senator Al Franken, who resigned in some disgrace. Now Jason Lewis has recently undergone emergency surgery. He has not been able to campaign very well at the very end. Obviously, some of that is not his fault. But to me, Tina Smith is going to be just fine. And there you are. That's 50. There's still 8 seats left. So technically, the Democrats can get all the way to 58. That's not impossible on this map either. It's very, very improbable, but it's not impossible. Okay, so here you are. The Democrats have already picked up the majority. And this, to me, is with the 4 easiest flips for them. Now, none of these are technically easy. I would characterize Colorado as very, very much in their favor. Arizona, a little bit less, but still a good position. They're still in a good position there. North Carolina, I think the Democrats remain in the driver's seat there. And Maine, they're still maintaining a very small edge over Susan Collins. Okay, so can the Republicans at least get this thing up back to, can they sweep all 8 races and at least prevent this from being too functional a majority for the Democrats? Well, it's possible, okay? Here's the thing, though. The Democrats have other huge opportunities across this map, okay? Montana, this is another race that people have lost sight of. Steve Daines, okay, is the incumbent GOP senator here, holds a little bit of a lead over Steve Bullock, the incumbent Democratic governor, who was definitely the best candidate the Democrats could have fielded for this Senate seat. Bullock has a real shot of winning. Although to me, at this point, Steve Daines has the edge. It's not a big lead, but it's a steady lead, and that's important. Okay, if Steve Bullock does win, you should not be surprised because he is the most popular politician in the state of Montana by quite a margin. But at this point, the polling, the data shows that some of these statewide races we are seeing in the state of Montana are going their way. Now, the Democrats have a good opportunity, I think, to get this House seat here, Montana. Now, let me also point this out. That is crucial because if the Electoral College vote on the presidential level ends up in a tie, what happens? It goes to the House delegation vote, not the House vote, the House delegation vote. The Republicans currently hold a delegation lead at 26 to 24. Can you believe that? Montana has only one seat. If the Democrats flip it, it's 25-25. Think about that, right? So Kathleen Williams, a Democrat, is in a pretty important race there, not just for the House itself, but for the presidency. Okay, Bullock, though, the Democrat to me, I think is going to ultimately peter out around 48.5%, but he could well win this race. But the point is, even if you give this to Steve Daines, okay, that's a survival right there for the Republicans. They could very well lose that race. And we still have other big races to get to here, mainly Iowa. Basically a coin flip at this point. Teresa Greenfield, the Democrat, has run a very strong race against Joni Ernst. Now, I think Ernst has closed well in the polling. She's made it very, very, very tight. Some of the Des Moines Register polls, which are very, very accurate polls, and we know that Iowa is a state where polling is traditionally very accurate, at this point gives Joni Ernst the tiniest of edges. This is even far slimmer than what is already a very slim edge in Maine and a slightly bigger one in Montana. But right now, I still think Teresa Greenfield is the one who has the overall polling edge. She is one who has led for a longer amount of time on Election Day. She has outraised Joni Ernst, and she outperformed Joni Ernst in the debates. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of voters who were polled about that very issue. So already, take a look at the state of the Senate here. The Democrats have two sort of base states here to get them in striking range, okay, at 48. They have another one, they're in a good position in North Carolina, and another one in Maine, which to me is sort of the core four to get them from 46 to 50. And here we are. The Republicans now have already basically relinquished the outright. They've already relinquished the outright majority, we know that. Now they're just hoping to either keep it at 50 and win the presidency, or at least limit the majority to 50-50 and potentially pick off with, maybe Joe Manchin in West Virginia on certain issues or anything of that nature. And that is only if they survive in Montana, which is far from a sure thing, as Steve Bullock has as good a chance as any Democrat will ever have to win the Senate in Montana. And even in this model, I still think Teresa Greenfield wins in Iowa. And we have yet to even mention two more races in Georgia that are uber competitive. Jon Ossoff has closed exceptionally well over the past 6 weeks over David Perdue. David Perdue has run a terrible campaign, has not helped himself, has had poor debate performances, intentionally mispronounced Kamala Harris's name. That was one of the worst decisions he could have made. He made a little bit of an anti-Semitic gesture towards Jon Ossoff earlier on in the campaign. It has not been a smooth sailing for David Perdue. At the end of the day, to me, Georgia has an identity. And I think they're going to re-elect David Perdue by the faintest of margins. Ossoff could win tonight. Again, this is a Democratic wave year where the incumbent GOP senator that we're talking about here, David Perdue, and the president that is also on the ballot are very unpopular. It is possible, ladies and gentlemen, that the Democratic Party could elect two Democratic senators from the state of Georgia and Joe Biden in this state after tomorrow, after Wednesday. That is possible. That is staggering. But as of now, my gut feeling is David Perdue squeaks this out. Okay? The special election, Raphael Warnock is in the driver's seat. He is in the driver's seat. We have seen him lead in hypothetical matchups against both Kelly Loeffler and Doug Collins. We have yet to find out who he will be running against, assuming he does not get above 50%, which is the most likely scenario. Okay, so that's another flip for the Democrats, their sixth of the evening in the United States Senate. And they have a good opportunity here in South Carolina. Jamie Harrison, who has raised ungodly amounts of money against Lindsey Graham. It'll be the hardest re-election campaign Lindsey Graham has ever had. The Democrats are hopeful, but I think as of now, I would give Jamie Harrison about a 25% chance of defeating Lindsey Graham. It is South Carolina. It is a red state. It is a conservative state. It is a tough state for Jamie Harrison to win. It is a tough state for any Democrat to win. The Democrats, I think, are hopeful that this state doesn't end up costing them elsewhere. What do I mean by that? Well, we've seen the ridiculous amounts of money, $57 million, that Jamie Harrison was able to raise over that, over a certain amount of time. And what they're hopeful is that if Jamie Harrison loses, it doesn't end up costing them in, say, Iowa or Montana or Arizona if they lose a Senate seat out there and think, well, we could have diverted some of our funding out there and helped our candidates there. That's what they're hoping doesn't happen. Right now, to me, Lindsey Graham, I expect him to win. I would definitely be a little surprised if Jamie Harrison wins this race, but it is very close, okay? A swayable poll, which is not the most reputable pollster, gave Jamie Harrison a 6-point lead over Lindsey Graham just today. Another poll had Graham leading by 2%. It is close. It is tight. I would expect Jamie Harrison to get 47% of the vote to Lindsey Graham's 53%. If Jamie Harrison wins, I definitely would be surprised, but it is not impossible. Okay, this is how this Senate race is looking at this point. 52 already for the Democrats, 6 flips, and still a great opportunity in Georgia, a great opportunity in Montana, a reasonably good opportunity in South Carolina, and we have 3 more we haven't even gotten to yet. Mike Espy has been tightening things up here in Mississippi. It's not impossible for him to win this seat. It is unlikely, but it's not impossible. He has tightened. He has gotten a grip on this state. I think he can win, but to me, Cindy Hyde-Smith has the edge. John Cornyn is still in the driver's seat here in Texas. He is someone who has, I think just enough momentum left as a Texas GOP incumbent to survive here, okay? The Republican Party knows their time is starting to run out in the Lone Star State, and they could lose it tonight on the presidential level. But to me, John Cornyn is going to defeat MJ Hager, and we never know about what is going to happen in Alaska, as I've told you many times, because it's a wild card state we never really know. That is the state of play here. And the Democratic Party, there's nothing about these states that I'm really being generous towards the Democrats about, really, other than this one. And right now, even if I give them that seat, it doesn't mean I really expect it to go that way, number one. But even if I give the Republicans this seat and Joni Ernst wins re-election, the Democrats still have the outright majority, okay? It is very possible that this could happen. Check this out. Look at that number. 54 Democratic seats. That is 8 pickups. I'll say it again, 8. The absolute best, to me, that the Republican Party can hope for is this. And it's markedly different, okay? The absolute best they can hope for is that, 50-50. Because I cannot imagine a scenario where they win both seats in Georgia at this point. Now, what could potentially happen is, say that Joe Biden wins the election tonight, or this week, I should say. And therefore, when this race goes to a runoff, energy and turnout is a little bit lower. People are kind of burnt out with politics. You get the idea. That might cost Raphael Warnock. And to me, that could potentially give the Republicans the edge. That, to me, is the only way that this happens. Although, if control of the Senate rests with this race, then that might change that, okay? So let's go back to our normal characterizations here. Iowa, Georgia, special, and Maine, giving the Democrats Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, North Carolina, special election, Georgia, and Maine. So let's go through all the winners again, as we always do. We have Dan Sullivan winning in Alaska, Jeff Merkley in Oregon, Jim Risch in Idaho, Steve Daines in Montana, Cynthia Loomis in Wyoming, John Hickenlooper in Colorado, and Ben Ray Lujan in New Mexico. Mike Rounds in South Dakota, Ben Sass in Nebraska, we also have a race here in Kansas that we didn't mention, but we rated it safe because I can't really see Barbara Bollier being able to pull this out against. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name here suddenly. Roger Marshall. If he does, I will eat my words. I apologize. I'm gonna actually take this down. I kind of forgot to characterize this a certain way. That's gonna be likely, but you get the idea. Oklahoma, Jim and Hope will go the Republican Party's way. We also have John Cornyn in Texas, Tina Smith in Minnesota, Teresa Greenfield in Iowa, Tom Cotton in Arkansas, Bill Cassidy in Louisiana, Cindy Hyde-Smith in Mississippi, Tommy Tuberville in Alabama. We have David Perdue winning in Georgia and Raphael Warnock in Georgia as well. Lindsey Graham wins in South Carolina, Bill Hagerty in Tennessee, Cal Cunningham in North Carolina, Dick Durbin in Illinois, Mitch McConnell in Kentucky, Shelley Moore Capito in West Virginia, and Mark Warner in Virginia. In Michigan, we had Gary Peters winning, and then Chris Coons, Cory Booker, Jack Reed, and Ed Markey. And then we also have Jeanne Shaheen winning in New Hampshire and Sarah Gideon in Maine. Again, you get just to paint the picture here for you very clearly. The Democratic Party is in position to pick up these 2 seats here in the southwest portion of the United States along the Sun Belt, which gets them to that 48th seat and gives them the opportunity to basically pick up 2 out of any of the remaining ones. Montana, Iowa, 2 seats in Georgia, North Carolina, Maine. That's a lot of opportunities, good opportunities to get to 50, while also having reasonable shots in South Carolina, Kansas, Texas, and Alaska. They have a ton of options to get to 50, and the Republican majority in the U.S. Senate, I am predicting, will end tonight. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please comment down the suggestions below. Hit the subscribe button if you have not already. We are going to be coming out, obviously, with a lot of analysis of how the election is going pretty soon, so please stay tuned for that. As always, I want to thank you guys again for sticking with me throughout the election season. It has been a blast, and it's only getting started. We have a lot more content to come out pretty soon. And some exciting things are going to be coming out in the near future. So there you go, 52 to 48, that's your map. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I'll see you in November.